If you were going to script, I don't know, a conservation thriller, it would start exactly like this. You have a species of fish. It's so elusive, so tied to a habitat that's just disappearing, that scientists basically classify it as possibly extinct.
Right, they've pretty much written it off.
And the search for it goes on for 2 decades. Everyone gives up hope. And then, completely against the odds, it's not only found alive.
But the place where it's found turns out to be this incredibly important, globally significant biodiversity hotspot.
And also one of the most threatened.
Exactly. We are talking about Moema claudiae, a seasonal killifish from Bolivia. And for this deep dive, we're going to unpack its disappearance and its rediscovery.
And maybe more importantly, why this tiny little piece of land where it was found is basically an ecological ticking time bomb.
Yeah, this isn't just a story about one fish. It's about uncovering a global treasure that's been hiding in plain sight and the very real risk of losing it, like tomorrow.
It's this amazing moment of hope, followed immediately by a gut punch of reality. So let's start with the fish itself. Tell us about Moema claudiae. What's its story?
Well, the species actually has a really lovely backstory. It was discovered by Professor Wilson Costa, and he named it after his wife, Claudia.
Oh, that's nice.
It is, but that sort of romantic history couldn't really protect it from, changing land use. After it was first described, it just vanished.
And when you say seasonal killifish, that's not just jargon, right? That term points directly to how fragile they are. I think we need to unpack that right away. What does seasonal actually mean for a fish?
That is the key. It's the key to understanding both their incredible survival skills and their extreme vulnerability.
Yeah.
Seasonal killifish are specialists. They're adapted to live in these ephemeral or temporary bodies of water. Think puddles, tiny ponds, wetlands that they fill up in the rainy season.
I mean, completely dry up.
Completely dry up, gone for months.
So their entire world just disappears on a regular basis. How does a fish survive that?
They live fast and die young. It's an incredible strategy. They grow super rapidly during the wet months. They lay their eggs, and then all of the adults die when the water evaporates.
All of them.
Every single one. But their eggs are the miracle. They're adapted to survive in the dry mud in a state called diapause.
Diapause.
Yeah, it means the embryos just pause their development. They wait, safe in the dry earth, until the rains come back months later. It's this amazing evolutionary trick.
That makes perfect sense, but it also means their entire existence is tied to the health of that one little patch of dirt, even when it just looks like a cracked, dry field.
Precisely. And that brings us right back to why Moema claudiae disappeared. It had been seen for over 20 years, and the original spot where it was found,
Let me guess, it was developed?
utterly destroyed. It was converted into large-scale industrial farmland.
So you pave over the only known address for a species. It's not a huge leap to see why the IUCN would label it critically endangered and then, just assume it was gone.
And you'd think they would have searched everywhere, right? Of course.
And they did. For 2 decades, they ran extensive surveys across huge areas of potential habitat in the Bolivian lowlands. They followed all the ecological clues, and nothing. They kept coming up empty.
Why, though, if the fish were still out there?
The consensus was that the speed of agricultural expansion had just outrun them. The habitat was vanishing faster than anyone could even survey it to see what was there.
Okay, so let's unpack that. This 20-year failure to find them. It wasn't just people looking in the wrong places.
No, I don't think it was a lack of effort. It might have been a lack of focus on what looked like, useless land. And that's where the researchers, Heinz Arno Dracht and Thomas Otto Litz, come in.
The ones who found it.
Exactly. They were on a recent field expedition, just surveying the area, and that's when they finally located a surviving group.
And I'm guessing it wasn't in some pristine national park.
Not even close. It was almost laughably precarious. They found them in a tiny temporary pond.
That had somehow been preserved inside this little fragment of forest, like a tiny green island completely surrounded by huge encroaching farms.
Wow.
It's exactly the kind of spot a farmer would see in the dry season and think, this is just worthless land, let's plow it.
So after 2 decades of searching these vast wetlands, the species was clinging to life on a sliver of land that could be gone in an afternoon.
That's it. This is the first confirmed sighting in over 20 years. It proved the species was still hanging on, and that hope immediately became scientific urgency.
Right, because finding a fish that's living on borrowed time in a puddle gives you this massive but very short-lived opportunity to actually study it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, until that moment, Moema claudiae was just a name, a few old specimens in a jar. Now, they could take the first ever photos of it alive, document its behavior, and for the first time, actually investigate its natural history.
They could finally figure out what it needs to survive.
Exactly. What are the exact conditions it needs in the wild?
And I saw that one of the researchers, Thomas Litz, his reaction was, it was really moving. He talked about how the finding gives them this renewed chance to actively preserve the species in the wild.
It completely changed the conversation.
Yeah.
It went from, writing a eulogy for a lost species to designing an emergency conservation plan.
But it gets bigger than that.
Oh, much bigger. The focus on just saving Moema claudiae, that quickly expanded when they realized what else was in that pond.
And this is where the story of this little patch of mud becomes a global scientific event. It wasn't just the one missing killifish.
Not at all. This is the moment that turns this little agricultural leftover into something, well, unique on a global scale.
Okay.
The researchers start to catalog everything in that single small pond. And yes, they find Moema claudiae, which is amazing, but then they find six additional species of seasonal killifish living right there with it.
6 more. So you're telling me there are 7 different species of these super specialized egg-laying fish all surviving in one tiny puddle?
7 species in one small temporary aquatic system. And to put that in perspective for you, that specific combination makes this one spot the most genetically diverse location for seasonal killifish ever recorded.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. This little forgotten patch of Bolivian wetland is a killifish megacity.
That's genuinely astounding. So what's the mechanism? Why there? What is it about that one little pool that concentrates so much diversity?
What's fascinating here is the geography. You have to look at where it is on the map. The site is right at the transition between 2 huge, very different biomes.
Yeah.
You've got the Amazon rainforest to the north,
Right.
and the seasonally flooded Llanos de Moxos savannas to the south.
So it's not really one or the other, it's an ecological crossroads.
It's the perfect description. You have the biodiversity spilling out of the Amazon meeting the very specialized temporary wetland dynamics of the Llanos. That overlap creates this incredible environmental complexity. You can think of it as a speciation factory.
Speciation factory, I like that.
Yeah, because the intense seasonality, that constant cycle of wet, dry, it naturally isolates populations. During the dry season, the ponds shrink and disappear, so the fish in one pond are cut off from the others. And over evolutionary time, that isolation just drives specialization. It prevents them from mixing, and it leads to the rapid development of new, unique species, each one perfectly adapted to its own little world.
And to find 7 of them coexisting is just proof of the evolutionary power of that zone.
It is, but also changes the conservation stakes completely. You're not just trying to save one fish anymore. You're trying to save the location that is actively generating biodiversity unlike anywhere else.
And that fragility is the whole point. This small pond is, right now, the only known place in the world with a wild population of Moema claudiae.
And the only known place with this hotspot of 7 species together. If this one pond is destroyed, the world loses a unique evolutionary laboratory, and at least 7 species face immediate local extinction.
It's just an overwhelming responsibility to have dropped in your lap. So what are the immediate threats? What's going to wipe this place out?
Well, the threats they are the definition of overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's the same force that destroyed the original site 20 years ago, just operating at an accelerated pace.
Deforestation.
Fast-moving deforestation driven by the relentless expansion of industrial agriculture across Bolivia.
And when we talk about that expansion, we have to talk about the scale of what's already been lost.
Yeah.
One of the sources we looked at had this just staggering figure for Bolivia.
It's sobering. It really is. Over the last 25 years, Bolivia has lost nearly 10 million hectares of forest.
10 million hectares.
And that number isn't just, dry forest. It includes vast, vital wetland habitats, exactly the kind of place these killifish need to survive.
It's impossible to visualize that number, but it shows you the sheer momentum of the destruction. And why are these little temporary ponds so particularly vulnerable to that agricultural frontier?
It goes back to that diapause cycle we talked about. During the dry season, what do these places look like?
Just dry, cracked earth.
Right. They look unproductive. They have no value for timber, no immediate value for crops. They look like waste ground, perfect for converting into a permanent field.
And when the land is plowed,
the eggs in the mud are instantly destroyed. The survival cycle is broken forever.
So the very strategy the fish evolved to survive the climate is what makes them so easy for us to wipe out.
And that's why the researchers are sounding the alarm so loudly. One of the co-authors, Heinz Gerard, he didn't mince words. He warned that without rapid action to curb what he called the irrational expansion of the agricultural frontier.
He used the word irrational.
He did. He said without that action, the world risks losing some of its most important terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Period.
So he's making the case that this isn't just some, ecological tragedy for fish lovers. It's an economic one, too.
Absolutely. He frames the loss in terms of human value. He talks about losing the irreplaceable goods and services they provide.
Like clean water, climate regulation.
Soil health, all of it. He's pushing back hard against this idea that agricultural expansion is a net benefit if it dismantles the very systems that sustain us in the long run.
So, okay, where does this all leave us? You have this incredible story. The hope of rediscovery, the scientific shock of realizing this little pond is a global treasure, and then this immediate, overwhelming threat from economic expansion.
It's the ultimate tension, isn't it? Short-term human gain versus the long-term health of our natural systems. I mean, the rediscovery of Moema claudiae is a gift. It's nature giving us one last, very clear chance to protect a site of global importance.
But if we can't do it?
If we can't manage to protect this one small area, the world's most diverse site for these fish, it says something pretty damning about how our society actually values nature when it comes up against economic pressure.
And that researcher, Gerard, he gave us that perfect summary, tying it all together. We cannot hope to achieve true social and economic well-being unless we also maintain the functionality of the ecosystems that sustain it.
Which leaves us with a pretty crucial question for you to think about, building on exactly that point.
Yeah.
If the health of an ecosystem is essential for our own well-being, for our own economies,
then how should we be measuring the cost? I mean, what's the real long-term price tag on wiping out something as irreplaceable as a global biodiversity hotspot for, short-term agricultural profit?
exactly, that's the balance we all have to figure out.